There are 4 new Triumph Tiger 1200 models for 2024, and I was able to test them for you here in Scotland. What's new, what's different, what's better, I'll tell you in this post. Yes, those of you who are now wondering why new Tiger models from Triumph, they just came out. Yes, that's right. The models as they appear here were launched in 2022. Back then, the T-Plane engine was new, as was the revised triple and the chassis. A lot has been redesigned here, including the look, of course. And Triumph really listened because there had been a bit of criticism here and there over the last 2 years. There were a few small tweaks, and that's why I'm standing here now, testing the update for you in 2024. A lot of improvement in the details, that much can be said in advance. But basically, let's take a look at the topic from the beginning. I'm standing here between 2 GT models. There used to be 3 GT models. At the market launch in 2022, there were 5 in the family, but now there are only 4. Why is that? They left out the cheapest entry-level model because Triumph said that the premium version with more bells and whistles would be bought in this category anyway. And that's why they left it out without further ado. That was the basic GT. Now here next to me, as I said, the Explorer with the large 30-liter tank, and here the Pro version, which has now also adopted many of the equipment features. And before we go into the depths of the equipment features and the general features, a rough outline of the vehicle, we have had the same T-Plane 1200 engine in it since its market launch in 2022. It delivers 150 horsepower and 130 Newton meters. And yes, I have to say, from this 3-cylinder, it's just really fun. It's free revving, it's smooth running, it has a bit of a character, the excitement of this 3-cylinder. It's simply a beautiful engine, I can't say otherwise. Every time I get off a triple motorbike like this, I have a grin on my face. And the grin on my face is all the bigger this time because a lot has really happened. Yes, while we're on the subject, let's start with the engine. Something has been done here in the details of the crankshaft, on the motorbike surface, on the balancer shaft, on the alternator rotor. The mass has been increased here. What was the problem? In the past, I was able to experience it myself when you rode hairpin bends on the motorbike, when you had very tight radii, technical sections, perhaps also off-road technical sections, then this behavior at very low revs, even when you were using the clutch, was always a little illogical. There is this low RPM assist, which is still included in the bike, but this synthetic revving of the engine was somehow, yes, idiosyncratic, I think that's the right word for it. And on top of that, when you were coasting downhill in first gear, at slow speeds, for example, and pulled the clutch, the engine would even stall from time to time. And now I come to the point, they have increased the masses, they have increased the flywheel masses, as already mentioned, on 3 components. A total of 900 grams more mass has been added here, and that has an incredibly positive effect. So today I really tried out that I can do this so well. I tried and tested it in the city in low speed handling, but also in tight corners. I simply couldn't find any more of this appearance, as I recently noticed on the previous models. So that's a real game changer, and it's really exciting. And a second step that has happened on this occasion is that the developers from Hinckley have also fine-tuned the balancing of these components. I think it's called fine balancing. So they have balanced these components, the balancer shaft, the crankshaft better, and the whole thing results in noticeably less vibration. Basically, this T-Blade engine has more character than, for example, the triple unit in a speed triple, because this stroke pin barrel, this non-rhythmic firing order, that has its very own vibration pattern, and that is still there. Of course, they haven't been able to conjure it away, but anyone who has ridden the previous models will know that it really led to an unpleasant tingling sensation in the hands and fingers, especially on motorway stages where you're traveling at 130 or 140 kilometers an hour. And that, I have to say, has really, really improved. Yes, let's continue with the changes. For example, the details that were previously only present in the Explorer model are now also present in the Pro model. Here in the GT Pro, you can see it very clearly in the cockpit, for example. There is now also an elastomer mounted handlebar, and that, of course, also has a positive effect in this respect. And I think it's great that they're taking this step and simply incorporating the technology that they already have into the models that are one level below. Although one below, yes, it's almost difficult for me to get that over my lips because the bikes are simply really brilliantly equipped. They have everything your heart desires in this class and at a really reasonable price, I think. We'll talk about the price later. But I actually did a bit of preparation last night, played around in the configurator at BMW, at KTM, at other well-known players in this segment, and realized that if you configure them to the level of the Triumph Tiger models, especially the 1200s like the one we have here, then you have to say it's a really fair deal. Let's go through it very briefly. We have a huge 7-inch display in the front. We have a lean angle dependent sensor system inside with IMU, which means ABS and traction control. As I said, lean angle dependent. I have the heated grips as standard. I have the quick shifter as standard on the Explorer models, i.e. on the larger ones with a 30-liter tank. I also have other things as standard, namely, apart from the large tank, I also have, if you can go through it from top to bottom, it's easier for me to remember, namely a blind spot warning in the mirrors. This means that I have a small radar element at the rear and a small corner in the mirrors that lights up when a vehicle is in my blind spot. Then I have a heated driver's seat as standard, a tire pressure monitoring system as standard, which means I have small sensors in the tires that give me a warning message on the display if there is a lack of air somewhere or if the air runs out quickly. Well, I think that's really, really good. I think it's really well done. And as I said, it comes as standard. And then there are also things, for example, that the basic version doesn't have, which I've just listed: the bench seat and the tire warning light and also the blind spot warning system. You don't have that here in the basic models. But of course, if you say, okay, I still want that, you can configure them in the accessories range. Yes, the GT models in general, how do they differ from the rally models? We'll look a little further over there where the other two bikes are, and I'll continue my presentation there. At first glance, we obviously have 19-inch front wheels. The rally models have 21-inch wheels. The rear remains 18-inch. And yes, in terms of handling, this means, and I can say that as a fact given that I have really ridden all four models today, often alternating between them, that these 19-inch front wheels already favor significantly more agile handling. That means it's a bit easier to steer the bike from the center position into the radius. In my opinion, the stability doesn't suffer either, but I still have to say that the 21-inch front wheel has created an almost more harmonious overall picture for me. There is simply less rotating mass here. The bike is more agile, but it really is a matter of taste. And I have to say that I was a little undecided until the end as to what my heart really beats for. If you're going for a sporty ride in tight bends, perhaps peppered with switchbacks, then of course the GT models have a bit of an advantage. But on the whole, as an all-rounder, I think I would almost go for the 21-inch version. In terms of tires, as I've already mentioned, both models have 18-inch wheels at the rear. We also have the 150 width everywhere, which has often been criticized a bit, this narrow rear tire. I can't understand it because it looks wonderful on this bike. And at the end of the day, it's a touring enduro, an adventure bike. And I think that's authentic. And I believe that if Triumph had fitted a wider tire, the handling would simply no longer be there. And the overall impression would simply suffer. Keyword overall impression. If we want to stay with handling, we have an incredibly stable chassis, which I really like. I like stable motorbikes. That conveys confidence, that conveys sovereignty. And yes, this stable overall impression is something really physical, and I have to say that it fits very, very well here. And especially with this 30-liter tank, aber Vicky, I was also a bit curious in a direct comparison whether you could feel the weight. And I have to say, yes, you can feel it, but it's almost not really a negative thing because this gentle swinging along, the little bit more work in the suspension travel that I noticed there somehow also fits in with this confident appearance. And ultimately, please also give your opinion when you look at the bike from the front, from the side, this 30-liter tank, somehow it suits the thing, I have to say. And yes, those extra 10 kilos, you can now think about whether you want that, whether you need that. Of course, there's also a bit more equipment involved, but at the end of the day, that's up to you. Just a few more equipment details if we want to go into them here. Typical Triumph all-round. Firstly, the finest workmanship, and secondly, the finest parts. We have Brembo's Dulema brake calipers on it. We have Magura HC1 fittings in the cockpit, the whole finish, the paintwork, the gaps, the bolted rear frame, the cardan drive. Yes, it's simply alive. It really is on a very, very high level. And if you now say, I want an adventure bike and I want an adventure bike with a cardan drive, then there aren't actually that many plays on the market. Two, to be precise, I think. Yes, maybe Moto Guzzi could be added to that. There are three. But yes, at the end of the day, this is an absolutely carefree package that you get here. And I'd like to say something briefly about the cardan drive, because there has always been a bit of criticism about the load changes, and I was never of the opinion that this really had anything to do with the cardan drive. I think it's more to do with the electronics, the response behavior, and the engine itself. That's why they've now stuck with it a bit to improve it. And I have to say, it's been very, very successful. The jerkiness that I remember from the old generation was perhaps most noticeable today in sport mode. But in street mode, in which I rode most of the time, the response behavior was really exemplary. And Triumph has done a great job there too. They've made it really livable. Yes, but now I would have said, let's look at the two GT models, also in this red color, by the way, new for 2024. On to another new color, Mad Sandstorm is the name of the color on the rally models. And there I'll tell you a bit more about how I liked them today. Yes, folks, snap. It's that quick. And I'm already standing between the two off-road orientated things, namely the rally models. We have the Rally Explorer here. Explorer, always the bigger thanks. You know that by now. And here on the Rally, the crash bar is also very noticeable. And here on my right is the Rally Pro. And here it simply means a bigger front wheel, more suspension travel, but also more seat height. And I have to say, yes, we can get straight into the subject of seating position and ergonomics. That's what happened to me today when I tried the low seating position. That puts us at 875 millimeter. From this 875 millimeters, you can then adjust the seat 2 centimeters upwards to 895. And then I have to say, yes, that was the first time that I wasn't sitting with my full surface area. I then brought my legs. My height is 1.90 meters to the floor, so you could imagine that it would be a bit difficult for shorter built people. And the bench seat in general, it has to be said, has also changed a bit in shape. It has become flatter. It offers a little more room to maneuver, more space. And that suited me very well because I'm someone who likes to work a bit in the saddle, especially on longer journeys, or change position a bit when riding sportily. And the old seat held you a little more firmly in one position. Now, there's simply more room to maneuver, and there is also plenty of room to maneuver downwards. As I said, you can use the lower position, of course, and then also order a lower seat from the Triumph dealer. It simply allows us to get another 2 centimeters further down. Did I mention it? Suspension travel. I don't think I mentioned it on the GT. It has 200 millimeters. Here on the Rally, we have 220 millimeters travel. And yes, we can perhaps talk about the suspension in a moment. I already mentioned Bosnia Rally earlier, a keyword. I rode the Rally Pro model a lot last year. We had it in our fleet. It was also part of the Bosnia Rally. And yes, this chassis, the response behavior, that is simply something that really inspires me. And these, how should I put it, these firm bumps over manhole covers, i.e. fast, hard impacts, they are simply filtered out perfectly. The suspension responds superbly. And Triumph has also come up with something in terms of comfort. It's not necessarily new now. I think it's been available as a software update since summer or autumn 2023, even for the old models. But it should be mentioned for the sake of order, as we were also talking about the seating position and seat height earlier. If you press the home button, i.e. the little box on the right-hand dashboard element, for a second, it takes about 10 seconds. But then this active preload function adjusts itself downwards a little. And I think you can raise the rear of the vehicle by up to 2 centimeters. This makes it easier to get your feet on the ground. A feature that, as I said, is not new and also applies to all 4 models, now included as standard. I've tried it a few times. You have to get used to the fact that you also have to think, aha, there's a traffic light up ahead. That's where I'm rolling the last few meters now. And as I said, use this function. It then automatically goes out of this mode again from a speed of 50 kilometers per hour. Or I can bring it back up again by pressing the home button again for a second. It always needs a little bit. It regulates. It is also indicated in the cockpit by a small spring element. This symbol flashes as long as the seat height is changing, as long as the electronics are working, so to speak. And when the new position has been found, either lower or higher again, it lights up. So much for the explanation. A favorite feature. I played with it a bit, but since I rarely have problems reaching the ground with my height anyway, which I don't necessarily need, but maybe someone who is 1.75 meters tall, 1.70 meters tall, is happy about these features. And I think it's really cool that Triumph has also made this available to older models simply by updating the software via the Triumph dealer. What also fits in with this point is the issue of lean angle clearance. In the past, this has never really been a problem for me on the rally version or the rally versions. You simply notice the additional ground clearance, the 2 centimeters more suspension travel, which makes the vehicle stand higher overall, and I've hardly ever had any problems, even on ambitious, sporty country roads, getting into trouble somehow with the footrests or other parts. So that wasn't an issue at all, but on the GT models, it was a bit of a problem, which 1 or 2 people in the community also complained about. Firstly, that there were extremely long scare nipples on them, and you could of course unscrew them from the footrests. Nevertheless, this lean angle clearance was always a bit limited. And on the GT models, I should actually have told you this over there beforehand, but it was definitely the case that Triumph redesigned the entire construction, the entire mounting of these vehicles, this footrest unit. The detents have been moved a little further up, and they have also been positioned closer to the vehicle thanks to this new mounting unit. At the same time, these scare nipples, as I always call them, have also been shortened for series reasons, and that means it's no longer a problem at all. I have to say, I still managed to do it, especially on the Explorer models with the big heavy tank, which was still full in the morning, where we had our photo stop and where we also made these videos about such tight bends with precision and so on. And if you really let yourself fall into one of those dips and then also in an inclined position, then you only manage to put the latch on. But I don't think that was representative of how a normal motorcyclist moves. It was just a special situation, but it got better. And that, I think, is the key message that should get through. Yes, with all the improvements we've gone through now anyway, maybe at some point the question of price will come up, and the prices have gone up. Yes, I'm happy to read you now. Don't worry, I'm not going to read you 4 motorbike prices from 3 countries. No, that's what we're going to show you at this point. But what I wanted to say is that the prices have gone up a bit overall. The entry level is no longer under 20,000 euros, but in Germany, I think it's now 20,050. And across the board, the models have become between 500 and 700 euros more expensive. But remember what I said before, have a look at the configurator of the competitors. I think it's really fair for what's on offer, and what's on offer is really comprehensive. It's even better now. And I have to say there's very, very little more I can criticize now. Perhaps most likely the issue with the windscreen, although that's very subjective, of course, with my size, which isn't quite the norm either. But apart from that, it really is a great motorbike. I've really enjoyed it here in Scotland. We've had a Massen with the weather. It was always raining the days before. Now it's raining again. We had a mostly sunny, dry day today. It was still the case that the roads were always wet. I think you can also see that in the onboard shots. But in the end, yes. The terrain we encountered today was extensive and varied. Really great scenery here in Scotland. I really enjoyed it and was able to enjoy it so much. The motorbike did, of course, and now I've thought about it again. I think that if I had to ride home on one of the 4, then the Rally Pro, as it stands here on my right, would be the bike that I think I would like the most. I would perhaps configure this comfortable seat from the Triumph configurator because I'm a bit spoiled by now. It was really cold today, and I was happy to use this feature. It's also included, but there's an extra charge here. It costs a few €100, but I think it's worth it. And of course, it extends the season further back. But perhaps you can also enjoy the cold season here for a month at the beginning and really step on the gas. Guys, I hope this post was informative. You were interested in what I was able to tell you. Perhaps I was also able to give you an understanding of these Triumph Tiger 1200 models if you have not yet dealt with them. If so, please let me know in the comments. Give me a thumbs up too. I'm particularly happy now. I'm a bit sad. I'm also looking forward to the beer and the whiskey tasting that's still waiting for me today. And yes, so that I can get there now, I'm saying goodbye here from Scotland, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.